You are now listening to Talk Loud Radio, sports, nerds, and pop culture.
What is going on, guys? All right, welcome to the Armchair Fantasy Show, episode 24, presented by TalkLoudRadio.com. You can find us every Tuesday night live on Facebook at the Facebook page, fan page. You can also find us on all your podcast services, iTunes, Stitcher, all of those, and also streaming in the Going for Two app as well. All right, guys, finally the draft is over with. We've finally come to that point where we've got some rookies and some landing spots for all these rookies, and we can talk about their value now that they have their home. So I thought I'd bring on my guest tonight. We had him on before the draft to kind of give us his rankings at that point, and now we're going to bring him back on and kind of redo the rankings based on where everybody landed. I'm talking about Ryan Searfoss of the Fantasy Football Connect Facebook group. He's also the co-host of Fantasy Football 24/7 podcast. And, of course, writes for GoingFor2.com and DominateFantasy.com. Ryan, how you doing tonight, man?
Fantastic, right? Glad to be back and ready to talk about some results instead of just guessing what's going to happen.
Exactly. It makes it more interesting now that we know everybody where they're landed at, and we can stop speculating on what they're going to be, what their value is going to be. So, definitely good stuff, man. Before we jump into the actual fantasy part of it, I just want to get your quick ideas or quick thoughts on the draft overall, like just the whole thing, basically all 3 days. Do you like the format? Do you like the fact that they kind of move around to different cities? And what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it?
Yeah, I like that they're moving around a little bit. I kind of miss it being more on the weekends than on a weeknight, but that's a while back now. But I thought it was great this year. And I'm ready. I'm happy with my team and the majority of it. Good deal.
I think I remember you saying you bought your tickets to watch Avengers Affinity War before you knew that the day of the draft was on that Thursday.
I did.
Did you get a chance to watch any of that draft on that first night?
I finished up right around pick 26.
Oh,
so
nice.
I just missed the Ravens' first pick. But I was there for the pick that was the most exciting for me.
Nice. That's perfect timing.
I was there ready for Lamar Jackson, so I was ecstatic.
Nice. Yeah, it was funny because I requested to open that day, and my boss, the day of the draft, said, "You didn't request to open because of the draft, did you?" And I was like, "Of course I did." He's like, "Oh man, we had a bet that you just took it off just because you had something else going on." I was like, "Nope, took it off for the draft, man." So it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I would have been upset if I wouldn't watch it live. We'd have passed Derwin James, and I saw it anyways.
Right. All right, so before we get into the fantasy football stuff here, I want to just get your couple your thoughts on winners and losers as far as the teams and the players and where they landed. Just give me a few winners and a few losers in this draft.
Okay. One of the winners I thought was Arizona. I think they got the best quarterback in the draft at the 10th spot, and they moved up barely anything. And they started building around him right away. They got him as number one receiver. They got him a center. They got him a second running back to back up DJ. I really liked what they did. Thought Cleveland had a great draft. They got their quarterback of the future. They got a stud running back. They got a number one corner. They got basically a little bit of everything. I thought they were some of the best ones. I didn't mind what Denver did add into their pass rush.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the Denver picks. And see, I actually had the Browns as not really a loser necessarily, but I was a little confused on their first three picks. Okay, first one, Baker Mayfield. Okay, that's your quarterback. I have no issues with that. But then when they had their pick on number 4, I thought for sure they'd go with Bradley Chubb there. Of course, they go with the cornerback like you mentioned. And I just thought that Chubb would have been a better fit for them, but, they went that route. And then, of course, in the second round, they go and get the other Chubb, Nick Chubb. And I thought with, Carlos Hyde already there, they got Duke Johnson under contract for one more year. I just felt there was more needs than running back than, taking Chubb there in the second round. What do you think of that?
I like Chubb. I thought they were going to go running back anyway since they had the 2 picks there and they loaded up on so many. Denzel Ward made sense to me because cornerback is an area of need for them, and they're desolate there. They have nothing. They had good safeties. They had their first overall pick last year in Garrett. They have Agba. They had talent there. I think that's why I like the pick. But I can definitely see where passing on somebody like Chubbs makes it hard. But he'd have been a rotational player like that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I guess, having that cornerback that basically can put, if he's good enough, you have him for 10 years probably out there. So let's hope that pans out for them. But they took some risks for sure. They didn't go like the conventional way that everyone thought they were going to go. So it was a good draft for them, I guess, in that sense. But yeah, Denver's picks. I love Denver's pick. I thought they improved themselves quite a bit. They got a good receiver. They got Chubb, Bradley Chubb there. So they did pretty well for themselves. I think they're the clear-cut winners overall for me.
Yeah, I like their draft. See, the Colts didn't do bad. I don't know about taking a guard that early, even though he was really good, but they went their positions in need and improved.
Definitely. Got to protect luck. All right, so let's go opposite end of the spectrum here. What losers do you have?
I think the Seahawks were the worst.
Seems to be consensus.
I mean, I don't know how you don't see how anyone would argue it. They don't have any offensive line, and they didn't take a lineman until the 5th round.
Yep.
And they just took one. They took a running back in the 1st round who I don't think is even near the top running back, and he can't pass protect. I don't know why they hate Russell Wilson.
They do. Yeah.
The they took was overpicked.
Yeah, I went on the Courtney Harden show. It's The Real Deal with Courtney Harden. I went on his show. I think it was either Saturday or Sunday. I went on his show, and we talked about that a little bit. And they actually took that lineman after taking a punter. That's how bad they I don't know, they like, you don't take a punter ever in the draft, but to wait until like that pick to take your lineman when you're that decimated on the front line, it made no sense to me whatsoever. And
they traded up for that punter.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It just didn't make any sense to me at all. I don't know what Pete Carroll was doing over there.
I never know what Pete Carroll's doing. I didn't love the Saints draft. Trading a 1st round pick to move up to get Davenport, who I thought was a little overrated. And Rick Leonard in the 4th, who, as a Florida State fan, I can tell you that guy is terrible at blocking.
Definitely.
I didn't like theirs, and I thought the Raiders were pretty bad. They saved it a little bit by getting Hurst late, but I didn't like theirs either.
Well, I got a listener on, or a viewer on the thing here. He asked a question about the Chiefs draft. What do you think of the Chiefs draft? They got Breland Speaks in the 2nd round. I guess they didn't have a 1st round pick. Derek, I can't even pronounce his last name.
Derek
Noddy.
Derek Noddy. He's a run stuffer. He's gonna probably fill in their old Poe role they had a couple years back. But outside of he'll take up double teams and clear things out. I don't mind that. I like Armani Watts at safety for them. A lot of the other guys, though, I honestly didn't know that well.
Yeah, they went all defense. I mean, they got defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, safety, cornerback, defensive tackle. They went all defense. So I guess they saw a need on the defense side of the ball and just decided to go all defense here. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a question. It kind of got me a little bit questioning it because I didn't know a few of their players.
Right. All right, let's talk about some Dynasty football now. Let's go into where these rookies landed. Talk about, if their value went up, if their value went down with where they're playing. We'll start, since the draft started with quarterback, we'll start with quarterbacks here. So 5 quarterbacks taken in the 1st round. Give me the guy with the highest short-term upside for fantasy and the one with the highest long-term upside, or is it the same quarterback?
I was torn. I kind of changed my answer from when I originally put it down. I think it's between Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen for the short term. I think you can take Mayfield and possibly trust him with Tyrod and get Tyrod Taylor cheap to back him up or in Dynasty or in redraft. And then I think Josh Rosen could start day one for them. They don't have anything better. They build around him. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft, and he just slid because people questioned how he acted off the field, which I didn't see anything bad about it.
Right.
But I think he's going to be a superstar for them.
Okay. So that's the short term. Those are the two short term guys that you can basically pick up. Are either of those two guys redraft worthy?
Maybe Rosen, but it's hard late in the draft, and quarterbacks. There's so many good quarterbacks and so many playable ones. It makes it tough unless you're in 2 quarterback leagues.
Agreed. What about long term upside? Which guy do you have as your long term quarterback?
I still think Rosen's my top. I think Lamar Jackson could be a fantasy star. I'm trying not to say it because I'm a fan now because he's on my team. But anytime you get a quarterback who can rush in fantasy, it's huge. And Lamar Jackson was unbelievable running the ball in college. He's the only college quarterback to pass for 3,500 yards and rush for 1,500 yards in a season.
Wow.
And he did it twice.
Wow. That's impressive for sure. Any chance we see him starting this year, barring injury to Joe Flacco? Let's just say, do they bench Flacco for Jackson?
I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say now I don't want it to happen. But come back to me on week 5 when Joe Flacco has me tearing what little hair I have left out, and I might have a different tune there.
Definitely. I think the fans would too. They're going to want to see their rookie out there if Joe Flacco is not doing what he's supposed to be doing. But you never know. Flacco always seemed to play better in the playoffs. Obviously played very well in the Super Bowls. Maybe this pressure of having a guy down his neck, maybe it'll make him play better and sort of keep him on the bench for one more year.
And I hope so. But his contract's up after this year for guaranteed money.
Yeah, I read that. So I think that he's pretty much gone after this year. I think it's going to be Lamar Jackson's show at the latest, I think, start of next year. But I think there's possibility he can be starting this year as well.
I think that's why they brought in RG3 too, right around the free agency period, because they had a plan to possibly get Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, that's a good call.
And he would be a good way for him to learn.
Yep, that's a good call. What not to do when you run, don't get hit. Basically. Slide, yeah. I hope he ain't teaching them how to slide because he was never very good about that.
No, not at all.
So let's talk Dynasty rookie drafts here. What's the earliest round you're willing to take a quarterback? Are we talking end of the first here? Are we talking second round? Let's just look at like a 12-team league.
12-team league, I have 214, so I believe I have my first quarterback. Or not 214, I'm sorry, 2-4.
2-4.
2-4, 2-5 range.
Okay, fair enough. So top of the second round there. I think that's kind of what I'm looking at as well. I know me and you are both in a 16-team dynasty, and I don't think a quarterback's been taken in our draft yet. I think we're entering the second round yet, or just now. And I don't think actually a quarterback may have gone towards the end. I think Lamar Jackson did get picked up towards the end of the first.
I think Jackson did too. Yeah.
So yeah,
right around 14.
Yep, I agree. I think that's probably right where you want to take a quarterback. I agree 100%. All right, let's go. Let's look at the receivers now. Here, I'm just going to go. We're going to go through some of the top receivers. I know I had you on before the draft, and we talked all these receivers here. So I kind of listed a few of the top ones and where they landed. I want you to just kind of talk about them a little bit. Tell me if their landing spot was a good spot, if they're going to be relevant in fantasy their first year or whatever. And we'll start here with Calvin Ridley going to Atlanta. Obviously, he'll be there with Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu in that offense with a couple good running backs. What do you think of his landing spot?
I hate it.
Hate it.
He was my number one receiver before the draft, and he's dropped probably 5 or 6. I don't like anything about it. He'll never have the opportunity to be a number one receiver with long as Julio is there, which could be another 4 or 5 years. Who knows?
Agreed.
Sanu's going to take away touches. The running backs will. I mean, he might have some good games, and maybe in best ball formats he's worth picking up, but man, that hurt.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think that Atlanta was probably one of the worst places for him to go because, Sanu did have a good year. I think maybe even a career year for him. He actually had more touchdowns than Julio Jones did. And then, Julio Jones is Julio Jones. He's going to get his targets. I think he was 6th in the league in targets. That's not going to change much. So Ridley's going to be fighting just for the ball. Then, of course, they got those 2 good running backs there. They're going to run the ball a little bit. Matt Ryan. Yeah, and throw to him, exactly. So Ridley's kind of like, at best, maybe the 4th or 5th option on this team. I don't see him being relevant in fantasy, at least not his first year. Maybe if something happens his second year, if Sanu goes away or, whatever. But yeah, I think his first year and really his outlook overall, I think is not good for where he landed.
Yeah, I mean, I like it for real football, but not for fantasy. I think his ceiling right now is Cooper Kupp.
Agreed.
If we're lucky.
Agreed. All right, the next one we got here is Cortland Sutton. He went to Denver. What do you think of his landing spot?
Short term, I don't like it. Long term, I do. I think he's still going to be behind Demaryius and Emmanuel Sanders. Could be a very slow start like we saw with Corey Davis last year, but for different reasons. He could learn a lot, and I think down the line, it could be a very good landing spot. They still don't have a quarterback either, which should be taken into consideration as well as bad offensive line. He dropped a decent amount, too, in my rankings, beyond some of the other guys we're about to mention.
Not buying Case Keenum at all as a quarterback?
No.
Fair enough.
Not at all. They had a nice team around him last year. Good receivers, good tight end, good running backs, good line. I don't buy anything of that yet.
Fair enough. I think I'm with you too. I think Sutton, I think long term, I think he's got the long term prospects are going to be good for him. The short term prospects, I don't see him really doing too much there unless there's an injury to one of those 2 receivers. Of course, they want to run the ball. They drafted a running back, so I think that especially in that area too, it's going to start snowing there eventually, and it's going to be cold. They're going to want to run the ball a little bit. So I'll take it out of the hands of the receivers a little bit. And I think with Thomas and Sanders there already, I think that he becomes the 3rd option, if not the 4th option on that team. So agreed with him. The next one here is my personal favorite and one that I'm actually targeting in my main Dynasty league that I play with all my friends. That's DJ Moore going to Carolina. What do you think of his landing spot?
I'm agreeing with you. He's right now my wide receiver 1. I think he's dynamic. He can run routes well. He catches the ball. He runs after the catch. He runs those short to intermediate routes that Cam Newton can actually get the ball to. I think they can kind of use him like they did Steve Smith, who gave the stamp of approval on him. I'm not saying he's going to be that good, but he's talented, and I like what he brings to that team. There's some touches to go around, but I think the talent rises to the top. I'm not that worried about Funchess.
Yeah, agreed. At first, when he first went there, I wasn't too happy with it because I was targeting him before the draft, and I wasn't happy at first, but just because of Cam Newton's sort of accuracy issues that he's dealt with over his entire career. I was kind of like, he isn't the best quarterback that he could have had. But then I sort of thought about it and, how good Steve Smith was in that offense when he had Cam Newton. And Cam Newton has made number 1 receivers before with Kelvin Benjamin being there. He was the number 1 receiver for a little bit. So I think the possibility of him being a receiver like that is definitely there. There are going to be some touches shared because I do have McCaffrey who, catches a lot of balls. Funchess is probably the red zone guy. But I think overall, Moore can be that sort of Steve Smith type receiver in this offense for sure. So I still have him as my top receiver over Ridley and Sutton as well.
Yeah, and he plays big for a smaller receiver, so that might help go with him as well, with Cam as well.
Agreed. The next one I have on here, I just put on here because I was trying to just going through all of our top receivers, and we didn't talk about him much on the last podcast. But James Washington going to Pittsburgh. He's got some competition ahead of him. Of course, they did trade away Martavis Bryant, so I'm assuming Juju probably steps into that role. Washington maybe be the 3rd receiver. What do you think of him in there in Pittsburgh?
He dropped about a half round for me, from late 1st to mid 2nd. Okay. He's right around where I start taking quarterbacks before him, and by draft, to be honest. But living in Pittsburgh, I know a little bit about them. I think kind of right. He's going to step in, be the 3rd receiver. He's going to be their deep ball specialist. How they use him on the outside. Juju still might play some slot. They move him around a lot, but he's going to have some huge games, and then he's just going to disappear.
Kind of like Martavis Bryant was there for a while. He was sort of boomer bust there for a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, James Washington averaged over 20 yards a catch in college. Like, he was a huge. He led the country in receiving yards. Was like in the 30s or 40s for receptions. Like, it was ridiculous the amount of big plays he had. And I mean, down the line, once Antonio Brown starts to slow down, he could step in that role. And with them taking Mason Rudolph, they have that chemistry. So maybe long term it could be good, but short term it's going to be one of those random occurrences that you're going to wonder why that guy you're playing against started him.
Exactly. That happens to me all the time. I'm like, I look at the lines beforehand and I'm like, okay, because of injuries or bye weeks, he's got to start, X receiver. And I'm like, all right, I got that. And then, of course, that's the week that the receiver just goes crazy. I think a couple years ago, I'm trying to make it into the playoffs, and the guy has Kenny Britt starting, which he hadn't done anything all year. He's been terrible. Of course, he goes and has 3 touchdowns that day, so it just it killed me. I'm like, come on, Kenny freaking Britt, are you kidding me? But that just always seems to happen to me. But yeah, I can see that in that offense, being one of those guys that you can't really predict. He's going to have big games. He'll probably have a good overall numbers at the end of the season for a rookie, but his game-to-game log will probably be boomer bust for sure.
Yeah, he'll be a nightmare. He's another guy I'll probably target in best ball.
Agreed. All right, the next 2 guys here. The next one actually has the potential to be the number one on their team with the good camp and everything, but the Dallas Cowboys have been picking up like 1,000 receivers, it seems. Every couple of days they're adding a receiver, it feels like. But they went and draft Michael Gallup. Is there any possibility he becomes the number 1 receiver there, replacing Dez Bryant?
Dude, I love Michael Gallup. He was my top choice for the Ravens in the second round through the entire draft process. He's fantastic. He catches everything. He's physical. He's big. He can run after the catch. He can high point the ball. I think he can step into their number 1 role. I think he's a wide receiver 2 this year. Nice. I think he's somebody I'll actually target.
Nice.
He's my second overall receiver right now for fantasy or for rookies.
Nice. Yeah, I think he's going to take a jump in my rankings as well. I was kind of unsure about him at first because I didn't really know too much about him, but I think I'm going to move him up a few spots in my rankings as well.
Watch him against Alabama. He kind of tears up Minka.
Nice. I'll have to go back and watch that tape. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I watched it a couple times. He's a monster.
Nice. All right, and the last one I have, he probably isn't the number 1 right now because I still have Larry Fitzgerald there. But I think eventually he could be that number 1 receiver, and that's Christian Kirk in Arizona. Of course, he'll be paired with the rookie quarterback there as well. That could be good for a long time. What do you think of Kirk?
I like Christian Kirk. I like him a lot more. He's one of my bigger guys for moving up in the draft. I was a little bit iffy on him at first, but they picked him high to go with their rookie quarterback, like you said. They actually were in high school all-star games together, so they already have some chemistry built up.
Nice.
He's, from as much stuff I listened to, like with NFL Network and like Daniel Jeremiah and them, all they talked about is how he's like a professional and how his work ethic, it's very similar to Larry Fitz. So those 2 together might help him learn and develop even faster. And he can step into a huge role because of how athletic he is. He can return kicks, return punts. He can play the slot or outside, and his run after the catch is ridiculous.
I mean, really, he could potentially be the number 2 receiver there for his first year. And, the last time they had a number 2 receiver that was any good was Anquan Bolden. So Fitzgerald's been kind of doing it by himself for a very long time. So if he can give them a consistent number 2 receiver, I think in this offense, he could be a pretty good receiver. Of course, they got David Johnson out of the backfield, too, so that'll help open some things up because they can't really drop back into zone coverage and just double team those receivers. They're going to worry about David Johnson as well. So
yeah. I really like that pick up for them.
Sorry, I'm kind of reading these the comments here on Facebook, and in the background I've got a pumpkin from Halloween that my daughter painted, and he's wondering why there's a pumpkin in the background. So basically, I'm in my basement. Everything you see back there, this is my junk room. So there's a random pumpkin sitting back there. So that's why it's there, Ralph.
Makes you feel better. I'm in a room surrounded by boxes because I'm moving in 4 days.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So Yeah, this was kind of the junk room. I kind of turned it into my studio, which before I did the live broadcast wasn't a big deal, but now it's like y'all can see all my shit here in the background. I got books and random shit behind me, so maybe one day I'll get some cool graphics in the background going for 2.com or something that'll make it look a little bit better. But right now, you just got to roll with the background. All right, let's get back to the podcast here. Going back to these receivers, looking at your rankings on goingfor2.com, you've got Moore right now ranked at number 5. Is that where you're drafting him, at number 5? If you're in your rookie draft right now, is he your first receiver off the board at number 5?
He's my first receiver off the board. It's going to depend on my team build, on if I'm actually going to take him at 5 or not. But overall, I feel pretty strong with him there. Fair
enough. Yeah, I think in the draft that me and you were doing, it pretty much went running backs, all running backs in that first, I don't even know, 6-7 picks. It was all running backs. So
yeah, I took Chubb at 6.
Yeah, that was a great pick. Yeah, that was a great pick.
We had a defensive end go too.
Yeah, I honestly think that person messed up. I honestly think that they meant to get Nick Chubb, and instead they drafted Bradley Chubb. I could be wrong. Maybe they just wanted that defensive player, but I just find it hard to believe that, in an IDP league that you're going to go Bradley Chubb at number 2. But, maybe they wanted to do that on purpose, so who knows?
I thank them if they didn't.
Are any of these receivers that we just talked about, I know we talked a little bit about Ridley not being redraft worthy, but are any of them redraft worthy? Anybody you're going to be targeting in a redraft league?
Yeah, I'd probably still look at Moore, Gallup, Kirk, and Sutton in redraft.
Okay, all right.
Sutton's at the bottom of those 4 with redraft with a little bit of a gap, but those other 3 I think will make an instant impact, especially Gallup, because there's nobody catch the ball in Dallas. It's bad.
Agreed. Like I said, they're picking up random receivers. I mean, they got Hearns there. They picked
Hearns
up.
All right.
Yeah, he's decent. They just picked up Tavon Austin, but I guess they picked him up as a running back. It's not a receiver, so I guess they'll use him sort of like Lance Dunbar they had there for a little bit. But yeah, they've just got a bunch of miscellaneous receivers just on that offense, hoping that one of them can sort of pan out.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
All right, let's talk some sleepers here. Of course, last year's rookie class of receivers didn't do so well with those top guys. Corey Davis, Mike Williams were a few that, dealt with injuries all year and didn't really pan out. But Juju Smith-Schuster was kind of a late-round rookie draft pick in Dynasty and kind of blew up there for a little bit. Is there any Jujus in this year's draft?
Yeah, there's some guys I really like who went a little bit later. First one's for your boys. I love Dante Pettis from Washington. He's catches everything. He's had one drop in his career over the last season. So he's got steady hands. He runs great routes. I'd probably say he's the second best route runner in the class next to Ridley. He is an electric punt returner, kick returner. He has the most punt return touchdowns in college history from the position. He's fantastic. I think he's going to step into what they wanted Pierre Garçon to be with them. And I think he has a big role, probably pretty quick.
Nice. You sold me on him, because when I first picked him, I was kind of like, really? A receiver? And I was listening to the NFL.com broadcast, and they were talking about him being a slot receiver. And I'm like, we already drafted a slot receiver last year. I don't know why we'd go out and get another one. I mean, Trent Taylor was a pretty good receiver last year. I think he was actually top 5 in third down receptions for first downs last year. So that's a pretty good stat. So I was kind of like, why do we get this guy? But then I talked to you a little bit, and you kind of convinced me that, okay, this was actually a good pick. This guy can be a game changer, especially in the return game as well. If he can do anything at all on receiver, I think that he can definitely be a big help for our offense there, give us some big playability. So I'm kind of sold now on the pick. I wasn't originally.
Yeah, so he's never going to be a number 1 receiver. Like, he's not going to be that alpha guy, but he's going to be a damn good number 2 receiver for you guys.
Nice.
A little bit deeper, I like Traquan Smith for the Saints. He went late 3rd round for them from UCF. He's just a big play guy. He's going to be a younger, more athletic version of what they had in Ted Ginn last year. I think he'll eventually step in that role. He's 6'2", but he can fly. He's a great deep threat for them.
They really didn't have a second receiver last year, did they? I'm trying to think. Was it Brandon Coleman last year that they had?
It was Ted Ginn. Was their number 2 receiver?
That was their number 2. Okay, I knew he was there, but I didn't realize that he actually was starting in the as a number 2. I thought maybe they had Brandon Coleman. I guess he's the 3rd receiver there. Brandon Coleman was.
I think they kind of mixed him up. I mean, Ginn had the best numbers out of the rest of them.
Fair enough. So yeah, I think he can definitely take over that Ginn role for sure. I mean, Ginn is known for speed, but not known for hands. So,
no, not at all. A couple other guys I like. The Antonio Callaway pick for Cleveland. They're pretty stuffed up with a lot of talent there, but if Callaway can stay out of trouble, he could be a talent to pick up. And then Kiki Cutie for Houston. I think he'll be electric in their slot role. And I think he'll be great for Watson's development, and I think he can produce and be a high PPR target guy.
What was that name again?
Kiki Cutie.
Kiki Cutie. That's an interesting name there.
It's Coute.
Nice. I'm gonna have to write that one down because maybe I'll get him in late rounds because I honestly had never heard of him until just right now. So
he flies with the ball in his hands.
Nice. I like how you said if he can stay out of trouble about the Cleveland receiver. How many times have we said that about Cleveland players?
Dude,
Manziel, Josh Gordon. Yeah, it's wow.
He failed the drug test at the combine, and he was suspended his entire last year at Florida, and he had 2 other charges before that. Why
does Cleveland do this themselves? Why do they draft guys like that? They're not the franchise like the Patriots that can take on a guy like that. They've got some bad rep guys already.
Right, that man's Cincinnati. Must be an Ohio thing.
Yep. And actually, there for a little while, my team was kind of a domestic violence central. It was every couple of days, it felt like someone was beating up somebody. Luckily, we've kind of cleaned it up a little bit, but it just seemed like every day it was like somebody was doing something with my team. Yeah,
we cut that down after Ray Rice.
Yeah. You had the big one. You had the one that was seen around the world. All right, let's take a quick commercial break here, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the tight ends that were drafted, and of course, the position that we all worry about the most is the running back position.
Advice for your fantasy football team? How about your DraftKings or FanDuel lineup? GoingFor2.com has you covered. GoingFor2.com has exclusive content from some of the best fantasy writers in the industry, whose credentials include Bleacher Report, Fantasy Pros, and Fantasy Life. From advice columns to player ranks, GoingFor2.com has it all. Sign up for our newsletter to have all of our content sent to your inbox. Start winning today. Visit GoingFor2.com because no one remembers the extra point.
Today's show is brought to you by Daily Fantasy Nerd. They have everything you need to build better lineups. You can analyze stats, view up-to-the-minute Vegas lines, check player game logs, import and manage your own projections, build optimal lineups, and a bankroll tracker. To get started for free, visit goingfor2.com/dailyfantasynerd. That's goingfor2.com/dailyfantasynerd. Start winning today.
Step into a world where there's no one left but the very best. No MC can tell.
All right, welcome back. We are here tonight with Ryan Searfoss. You can follow him on Twitter at FantasyFBConnect. That's fantasy with no A's. So FNTSYFB Connect on Twitter. All right, man, you ready to talk a little about some tight ends here?
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with your team there. Y'all drafted Hayden Hurst there, and Joe Flacco kind of loves his tight ends there. Is Hayden Hurst going to be relevant in fantasy, you think, this year?
I thought he was. Then they took another tight end, Mark Andrews in the third. So 2 of their first 4 picks were tight ends this year. So one of them is going to get the targets. It's just a matter of who.
Are they both? Are they both receiving type tight ends?
I'm sorry?
Are they both receiving type tight ends?
I think Hurst is more well-rounded. Like, I think he's more of a blocker and used in different ways. Like, South Carolina used him as a fullback, tight end. They did like end arounds with him. And Andrews is just a receiver. He's on a go in the slot. He doesn't really block. He just catches and can run after the catch.
I wonder if that has to do with anything that they're doing with Lamar Jackson, if they're trying to get some decent tight ends in there, because there's a lot you can do with tight ends. So
give him a big target.
Exactly. All right, what about
needs him.
You got Dallas? I don't know how to say his last name. Goddard? How you say it? Goddard.
Yep.
Yeah, Goddard. So he goes to Philadelphia to play behind Zach Ertz. If you're a Ertz owner, are you nervous about this guy being behind him?
I am an Ertz owner, and I'm a little bit nervous, but I think it's one of those things. Ertz was fantastic. Wentz trusts him. He was there from the beginning, so I think he'll still produce. But I definitely think Goddard's going to eventually take over for him. Could be one of those long waits like we had with Hayden Hurst. Or not Hayden Hurst, I'm sorry. Hunter Henry. Wrong double H. But yeah, I think it could be one of them waits like that. Or they could use him maybe like Trey Burton last year, use him occasionally and fill in when he's hurt.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because they lost Trey Burton to the Bears, so they kind of replaced him with this guy. But yeah, I too am an Ertz owner, and I was kind of like, why did they go get a tight end? I guess when you're a Super Bowl winner and you got some good talent on your side, I guess you got sort of the luxury to sort of get depth instead of going out and getting needs. So maybe that's what they were thinking.
They picked just best available player. It was fantastic. I was impressed what they did. Yeah,
I agree 100%. I think they did a good job in the draft, especially for where they were drafting. I think trading back was a good thing. I think that allowed y'all to draft Lamar Jackson. They didn't need a quarterback. They didn't need anything there at that last pick. They traded back. So I think that overall they had a pretty good draft.
Yeah, they definitely did. And I just think they didn't need them, but they just took. I think they took it in spite of Dallas. Like they traded up one spot ahead of Dallas
just to get them.
Just gave them the finger because they don't have a tight end on their team anymore.
Exactly. Because Witten's retiring. I guess they're trying to talk him out of retirement, but I don't know how that's going to work out.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
I agree. All right, so the last one I got that might be fantasy relevant is Mike Gesicki. He goes to the Miami Dolphins. Where the Dolphins have been kind of a place where tight ends go to die. I mean, they basically have some good tight ends that, have good seasons. They go there, and then you don't hear from them again. Is this the year that they're finally going to have a relevant tight end, or is this guy just going to be just one of those Miami tight ends again?
I don't know long as Tannehill's there, how good he's going to be able to do. I think he's in a great situation to start and get their targets, and he's athletic and big. He can't block, but they'll be able to throw him the ball, and he might be a red zone threat. But first year tight ends, first couple of years, there's not really a ton they do. Agreed.
That's something I always bring up on my podcast too. Is people get frustrated when they draft a rookie tight end that doesn't do anything. But if you look at history, I think over the last 5, 6, 7 years, maybe even farther than that, I think Gronk is the one tight end that I can think of that actually had a decent rookie season. But guys like Travis Kelce did have a good rookie season. Jordan Reed, he can't stay healthy now, but even his rookie season, he wasn't very good. Zach Ertz took 2 or 3 years before he became anything. So I think tight ends is the hardest position to go from college to the pros in. And so if you're drafting a rookie tight end, I would just say be patient.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it this way, Eric Ebron's top 5 all time for first 4 years performance for a tight end, and everybody hates him.
Exactly. Yep. All right, let's get to the money position now, the running backs. This was kind of a good draft for running backs, at least from a fantasy perspective. A lot of guys went to teams that I think they can really help themselves. So we'll just kind of go through each one of these guys, the same way we did receivers, and just you kind of tell me where they landed and how you like their position there. We'll start at the top with the big one, of course, the consensus number 1 overall pick for rookies, and that's Saquon Barkley going to the New York Giants. How do you like his landing spot there?
I mean, it's perfect for him. He's going to perform. I don't think it made any difference on him being the number 1 overall pick. They have a ton of receivers, so they can't stack the box. You have Odell Beckham there, who just keeps everybody honest. I could see him being a top 5 or 7 performer in all fantasy this year. He's going to be pretty high in redraft rankings for me too.
Agreed. Yeah, I haven't done my redraft rankings yet. I was waiting for the draft to kind of settle down, but I can see him cracking my top 10 for sure. Running backs are the one position that you can come out of college and be relevant and actually dominant right away, which receivers and quarterbacks don't quite do that as well.
No, I think he'll be great his first year in there. He can catch the ball just off of that. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's the top 10 running back last year just because of receiving, and he can't run as well as Saquon can. Good
point. The next one we have is pretty much a consensus number 2 pick. I think the fact that he fell kind of scared some people away from him a little bit. But Darius Geis going to the Redskins, what do you think of his landing spot?
I mean, everybody projected him to go there in the first round. It's just the fact that some questionable stories about him came out that caused him to drop till late second. I think it doesn't change anything for me. Even though Gruden did say today that, their coach said today that he was going to be just first and second down back and wasn't going to be there any receiving downs. That's the only thing, but I still think he's one of the best pure runners in the draft, and him falling a little bit doesn't scare me at all.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that as well. The Redskins' running game has been terrible for so long. Chris Thompson is probably their receiving back for sure. I think that he's a game changer there, so he can come back and be healthy. The problem is he can't stay healthy. But yeah, I think Geis is still my number 2 overall. The Redskins, the only thing that scares me a little bit is Jay Gruden's offenses typically haven't produced top 10 running backs, even going back to his days in Cincinnati. So that scares me a little bit. But I think Geis is going to be still a decent fantasy running back for the Redskins.
Yeah, but he's never had a running back that talented.
It's true.
I mean, look who they've had in Washington. They thought Matt Jones was going to be good.
Yeah, and he got released by the Colts just recently, and the Colts have no running back, so that tells you how good they thought he was.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine there.
Fair enough. All right, so this next guy here, I've seen him ranked as high as number 3, and I think you may have had him as low. I think you had him at like 9. So he's kind of all over the map. I think I have him at 3 or 4. And that's Rashad Penny going to the Seahawks. Of course, it was a surprise pick that we talked about already. So why do you hate him so much?
I have him at 9. I just looked it up when you said that. I just don't believe in what they had or what he produced in college. They've had a 12 in the last 10 years or last 8 years. They've had 10 1,000-yard rushers at San Diego State. So they've had a 1,000-yard rusher every single year, plus 2 backups who got it as well.
Wow.
All their starters had over 1,200 yards. And he backed up Donnell Pumphrey, who's 5'9", 165 pounds, soaking wet for 2 years. His production was great. He played nobodies. I just don't believe it. I think Seattle's line's garbage. Their best receiver is a slot guy and Doug Baldwin, who I like, but it's nothing that you're really going to fear. I think he's going to get smashed behind that line. I don't have the faith in him yet.
Agreed. I think I'm with you. I think I have him 4th overall, and I'm kind of debating on whether I want to drop him or not. I think it wasn't more that he rose, it's that the other guys kind of fell a little bit for me, especially the next guy that we're going to talk about, Sony Michel for New England Patriots. I think he fell probably the most in my rankings. He's number 10 now. You and Brad have him at number 6. Tell me about Michel a little bit and his landing spot.
So I've thought a lot about Michel because he's in my break where I've picked every draft. He's right around there. The Patriots have always been terrible for running backs. They've had a few good performances with like Blunt over the years and Dion Lewis even, but what running back have we seen the Patriots actually have who's performed as well, who's that talented? Who do you think is their most talented running back they've had since Belichick took over?
Let's see. Most talented would probably be who's that guy they traded for from the Bengals a couple years ago? I can't think of
Rex Burkhead?
No. Going back even farther than that.
Corey Dillon.
Yes, Corey Dillon. He's probably the only that comes to mind right away.
And he was, 28 when they got him?
Yep.
We're talking they spent a first-round pick on Sonny Michel. He makes more guaranteed money, or he makes like $250,000 less guaranteed money than the 4 other running backs on their roster. They invested in him. I mean, it's the NFL money talks. If you're spending a first-round pick on a guy, you have to have a plan to use him, and you have to believe in him. His knee scares me a little bit, and his fumbles scare me with Belichick, but the talent's there, man. Even if he gets 200 carries, I think he's still going to be able to produce. He can catch the ball. He's explosive. He can make big plays. As long as Tom Brady's there, they still have a great passing game.
Fair enough. I was kind of on the Patriots hate wagon because they've got like 4 guys there that they've picked up over the last couple of years, including Jeremy Hill this year from the Bengals that they got in free agency. Of course, they got Burkhead, you mentioned. Gillislee's still there. They got James White, Super Bowl hero from 2 years ago. So I just thought like this.
And Jeremy Hill.
Yeah, and Jeremy Hill. All those guys are there. It just seems like where's he going to fit in? I just think. But you're right. First round pick. They've never drafted a first round rookie running back before in Belichick's entire career there in New England. So maybe they saw something that they liked and they went out and got him. So I guess time will tell how much they used them. I guess.
I've just never seen them put any capital in the running position at all.
You're right. There's got to be a reason why they did it. All right, next guy I got on here. I think you told me you picked up recently in our Dynasty draft, and that's Nick Chubb from Cleveland.
Yeah, I think Chubb's great. I think he's a 2-down back. He's not going to get much receiving. That's why Sonny Michel was there and performed. But it's going to be a little bit tougher road for Chubb as a Dynasty owner, I think. His first year could be a little slow with Hyde being there, Duke Johnson being there, but I think the talent's going to show up. He has great vision. He has great balance. He runs hard. I think he'll be a goal line monster. And the Browns actually have enough talent to move the ball now and put him in that kind of position. It might be a year out before he's a top 12 running back, but I think he can get there.
Yeah, that was my next question is, they got Hyde. Duke Johnson, I think, is in his last year of his contract. They were trying to sign him to a long-term contract before the draft. I don't know if that's still a priority for them. Maybe he doesn't even start the season with the Browns. But with Hyde there, I think it kind of limits his year one upside. I think that they'll kind of be a 1 and 1A type running back. But I think Chubb overall, especially with Hyde's injury history, if Chubb can get the number 1 position just based on an injury to Hyde, I think he can definitely be good there in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, that's Chubb's big question, too, is his big injury he had.
Yeah, that's true. So, you never know. One of those 2 guys are going to end up being the number 1 running back there, I think, if there's any kind of injury. So I almost feel like if you're a Hyde owner, you can almost handcuff yourself to Nick Chubb because eventually he's going to take over for Hyde anyway.
Oh, definitely do.
All right, the next guy I got on here, I think he was the largest leap for me as far as pre-draft and post-draft rankings, and that's Ronald Jones II for Tampa Bay. What do you think of him?
We actually have them ranked the same. I did not know you jumped them that high. We have them both at 3.
Oh, you're right. Yep, we sure do. I'm looking at it right now.
I love Ronald Jones. I was a fan of him before the draft. I had him in top 5 before the draft started. I actually had him higher than Michelle. I had him at 4 before we knew the teams. I think he's electric. I think he can break the big play at any time. He's a smart enough running back to, when it's a 3rd and short situation, to just get the yards. Tampa doesn't have a running back. He has no competition. There's Peyton Barber there. He steps right in. He's the number 1 guy. He's got big play potential. If he can show any sort of receiving ability, he's going to be an absolute superstar in the league. We just haven't seen that yet. It's the only question, but his role is not a question, and his talent running the ball, I don't think is a question.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that the Bucs want to limit Jameis Winston, sort of being the game winner, so to speak. They want to sort of limit him in his passes, and I think running the ball is the way to do that. They haven't been able to do that since he's been there. I think the 1 year he had a really good season. They had a running game. Of course, Doug Martin's now gone. You mentioned they got Peyton Barber. I think Jacquizz Rodgers is still there, but he's not an every down back. So I think
he's nobody still.
Yeah, I think
that seems harsh, but yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I had someone on Facebook trying to convince me that Peyton Barber was better and that he would take over the number one position. I just don't see it. I think if he was going to do that, he would have already done that. So yeah, I think Jones steps in there and it's his job to lose. I think he's the number one running back there in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I mean, if Tampa believed Barber was that good, they would know. They would took a pass rusher at number 2 or in the second round.
Agreed.
They don't have it.
Agreed, 100%. All right, we got 2 more running backs here, both of them with a chance to be the number one running backs on their team. The next one is Royce Freeman going to Denver. His biggest competition there is Devontae Booker, who's been there for a little bit and has been unable to unseat C.J. Anderson, who's now gone. Does he come in here as the de facto number one running back, you think?
Yeah, I believe so. He just went 4th overall in my one rookie draft I have going on right now. He went before Michelle, Chubb, and Jones, which blew my mind. But
someone likes him.
Somebody likes him. He's talented. He was a 4-year starter in college. He has a shit ton of yardage. He's produced. He's had, I think he's had over 1,200 yards every season he's played. He's a good running back, and I think he's going to be a 2-down back for them. I think Booker's going to get that 3rd down role. But Freeman's worth getting high. I'd think about taking him over majority of the wide receivers in the league, or majority of the rookie receivers, other than probably DJ Moore.
Nice. Yeah, I think you got him currently ranked at number 8. I'm a little bit higher at number 5, and Brad's the highest of the 3 of us. He's got him ranked at number 4. So I think overall, I think you're right. I think he's the number one receiver. I think Booker does get that 3rd down role. Of course, I mentioned before that Denver's a cold weather stadium. You know, they're going to want to run the ball when it gets cold out there and snows on the ground. So he could be a good pickup there, especially coming down to the fantasy playoffs when you got cold weather games. It's good to have running backs in those type of stadiums.
Yeah, it's a great fit for them. He's a perfect complement, and he's better than C.J. Anderson was. Definitely.
All right, and I got one more here. This is the guy going to Detroit, Kerryon Johnson. You know, Detroit hasn't had a good running back, at least consistently. They've had like Reggie Bush there for a little bit. Amir Abdullah's been trying every year. It's like this is his breakout year, and every year he disappoints. So is this year that Detroit finally has their running back in Kerryon Johnson?
I like Kerryon. He was a 1st-round person for me before the draft. He runs hard. He's a big dude. He's tough. He has great vision. He runs similar to that style of Le'Veon Bell, where he takes his time and picks his way through the line. He's just not as explosive. But I think he's going to do well there. They picked their center in the 1st round. They picked They picked a really good offensive tackle in the 5th. They added another lineman in free agency. I think they're building around the running game. They finally have a decent enough line where he can produce, and he's their number 1 running back. There's nobody on that roster who can compete with them. They have to be done with Abdullah.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
I think he's a top 10 dynasty pick.
Nice. Yeah, I think I got him. I think you're the highest on him out of our rankers. I got him at 9. You got him at 7. Brad's down on him quite a bit. I had to get Brad out and talk to him why he's down so much, but he's got him ranked at number 17, which is a little bit too low for me. But yeah, I think overall, I think he's the number 1 running back there for sure.
Yeah, I have him over Freeman. I actually have him over Freeman, which I did not realize. But I think it's more. I think I like the line more, and I like the offense with Stafford, Jones, Tate. Teams aren't going to play them in cover the run. They're going to be worrying about the passing game there. So he's going to have smooth sailing.
Definitely. And of course, they play indoors in a dome. They play Minnesota twice a year. You know, they'll have that dome game in Minnesota. So
he's not going to do nothing against Minnesota.
Yeah. I'm just thinking long term that at least he'll be indoors. You don't have to worry about weather. So yeah, I agree. Minnesota's defense is pretty good. So. All right. Well, that was a ton of running backs there. Is there anybody that I didn't mention? Any sleepers that you like?
I like Nyheim Hines. I've been a fan of him through the whole process because of his receiving ability. I don't know how it's going to work with Marlon Mack there. And they picked up another one. And they picked up Jordan Wilkins, who's also kind of a receiving back, which doesn't make a ton of sense. I thought they'd get a banger between the tackles. But I like Hines. He can do a little bit of everything. He was a receiver as a sophomore, running back as a junior. So he can catch the ball, so it's going to have value in fantasy. He can return punts and kicks.
Yeah, it sounds like a good fit right there for sure.
John Kelly is one of my biggest followers I had. But if you have Todd Gurley on your team or you're in a deep dynasty league and Gurley goes down, he could be a superstar waiting to happen. I think he can perform if given the role, but that's one of those things, the worst thing has to happen.
Right.
Same with both Scarborough and Dallas. He was a 7th-round pick, but he's a big guy, and if he gets the line blocking for him, which Dallas has, he can perform.
Yeah, both those guys, of course, playing behind top 3 fantasy running backs. They may not get the opportunity, barring an injury. So,
but they're one of the few handcuffs I'd grab.
I agree. I think those are definitely handcuffs you want to have if you have one of those two guys.
How do you feel about Kalen Ballage with Kenyon Drake?
I'm kind of hoping that he's not any good because I have Kenyon Drake, and I'm kind of counting on him to be somewhat decent. So I'm a little on the fence with him. What do you think about him?
I think I don't know, man. He's the most confusing football player I've ever watched. He's big, he's strong, but he has terrible vision. He can't run outside, but they kept running outside. He can catch the ball. He's weird. He only had 125 carries like every year in college, and he was drafted fairly high in the NFL for being a guy who has no touches. I just don't get him as a player. I think he has talent, but I don't know if he has the whole game.
Right. Well, maybe they think with Kenyon Drake, they can the two of them can kind of create one running back because Drake's got his faults as well.
Yeah, he's a deep sleeper for me.
All right. So that's our sleepers there. So outside of Saquon Barkley, are any of these other guys the next fantasy stud? Any of these guys going to be like the next Todd Gurley or the next Le'Veon Bell?
I don't know about that, but I think Geis, Ronald Jones, and possibly Chubb, if he gets the job to himself, could be RB1s.
Fair enough.
And Sonny Michel if he gets out of New England.
If he gets out of New England, exactly. Who has
think the rest?
Go ahead.
I think the rest of those running backs who we named, like Freeman, Johnson, I think they're solid RB2s for a long time, though.
Agreed. All right, so who has the biggest bust potential? Like, who's the guy that, could be the boom guy, but he got to be the bust guy? Who do you have there?
I mean, Michelle has to lead the way just because of where he landed and his knee history. And he they did Pro Football Focus showed it that he fumbled 1 out of every 54 times,
Yeesh.
Which in Bill Belichick's world, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
He can find himself on the bench extremely quick. And I mean, Kerryon Johnson in Detroit, man. They've rotated running backs. I haven't found somebody for a long time. I like him, and I think he could do well, but he could just as quickly do terrible.
Yep, that's true. See, because I live here in Washington, and in Washington sort of negative right now on their team and what they've been doing in this offseason and draft, I'm hearing a lot of negative press over Darius Geis and whether or not he could be that number 1 running back or not. Now, you know a lot more about college football than I do. You've seen him play. Any chance there that he's going to be a bust here in Washington?
Dude, I love Darius Geis. I had 1.02, and it took a lot to get me to trade it. He is a monster. This year he played injured and still had over 1,200 yards.
Wow.
And LSU, if you watch any college football, they have no passing game whatsoever. He's a monster. I think he was as good, if not better, than Fournette when he was there.
Fair enough. So my Washington friends that are listening to this podcast are going to be happy to hear that because we've heard nothing but negative things on the radio. You listen to the radio, they're all talking about like why he fell and is he going to be the next Mike Jones or Matt Jones? Is he going to be the next Perrins, Marjay Perrins? So hopefully he gets end up being pretty good for them because
I think he's more Marshawn Lynch than any of those guys. He's just a different dude. Like he likes video games and he like tweets about and talks about that kind of stuff.
Nice.
He doesn't care about, he like doesn't talk all about football, and I don't think people like it.
Nice.
I like how he plays football though. He runs hard as hell. He runs people over. He can make a 70-yard run anytime he touches it. He's fantastic.
Nice. All right, so let's go ahead and play a little keep cut trade here, then we'll wrap the podcast up. You ready to play?
Yeah, and I hate all the ones you set me up with.
I try to make them as hard as possible to make you really think about it. All right, so I kind of went through and did quarterbacks, and then I did running backs, and then I did receivers, and then I did a second receiver one just for the hell of it. So the first one I got here are 3 quarterbacks, 2 rookies, 1 second-year guy. We got Mitch Trubisky for the Chicago Bears, Josh Rosen of the Arizona Cardinals, and Lamar Jackson of your Baltimore Ravens. If you owned all 3 of these guys and you got to keep one, cut one, and trade one, who are you going with?
Okay, so I am keeping Mitch Trubisky. I think Chicago did a ridiculously good job of building talent around him. They got Allen Robinson. They got Taylor Gabriel. They drafted Anthony Miller, who we did not talk about, but I think he's an awesome rookie. I think he's a superstar waiting to happen if they didn't have that much talent there at receiver. And they have 2 good running backs, Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen. They have him in the place to succeed with Nagy's offense. He's my keep. I'm going to trade Lamar Jackson because I think his fantasy value is the highest because of the running ability, and I think people think that and aren't as high on Rosen yet. And cut Rosen, even though I think he's the best pure quarterback of all of them.
All right, fair enough. I think I kind of had the same route, trading Lamar Jackson just because, I think you're right. I think he has a high trade value right now. It's got the bigger name, sort of a splashy move when Baltimore kind of moved up to get him. So I think I'm trading him. Same thing, I'm going to cut Rosen, even though I think he'll be good in the long run, and I'm going to keep Mitch Trubisky, even though his rookie season wasn't that great. I think Chicago got plenty of offense around him. He pretty much, if he doesn't perform this year, then he'll be able to bust because he's got plenty of talent around him.
Yeah. I mean, a John Fox offense, you can't expect much.
Exactly. All right, the next 3 guys I got here, I've got Jerick McKinnon, who's now in San Francisco as their number 1 running back, I suppose. Derrick Henry, who's now taking the number 1 job there in Tennessee. He does have Deion Lewis there as well. And then Sonny Michel with at the Patriots we just talked about. Which one you're going to keep? Which one you're going to cut? Which one you're going to trade?
I'm going to keep Sonny Michel. I know we kind of were a little lower on him, but I think the talent's there. I think they picked him high, so they believe in him. Like I said, Belichick hasn't ever had a running back like that before, and they've never had a pure 3-down runner like that before. So I'm going to bet on the upside. I'm going to trade McKinnon because everybody seems high on him, and he's the only running back there. Even though he's very, very close to the trade, I'm going to cut Derrick Henry because I don't think he's in the same hemispheres as other 2. He's a big back. He's a 2-down back, and I don't know how high he's going to go.
Fair enough. I actually had it a little bit different than you. I was going to try to trade Derrick Henry. I think his value is pretty high right now. Everyone assumes he's going to get the number 1 position there finally after DeMarco Murray left. I know Deion Lewis is there, but he'll be that 3rd-down running back. I think everyone wants to see what Henry can do. He had a couple big games last year. I think he had like 2 80-yard runs or something crazy last year. So I think his value is pretty high. I'm going to try to trade him. I'm cutting Sonny Michel from New England. I just don't think that he's going to get the opportunity that you think he's going to get. I think there's just too many running backs there. Belichick's the king of situational football, and I see him using all those backs in different ways to confuse people, which is going to limit his fantasy value. And then I'm going to try to. And I'm going to. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. So I cut Michelle. I'm trading Derrick Henry, and I'm going to keep Jerick McKinnon. Not because I'm a 49er fan, but because I think that he's going to have a monster couple years there with Shanahan as his coach. All right, let's go look at some of the receivers here. The next one I got is 2 guys we kind of talked about a little bit. Juju Smith-Schuster from Pittsburgh. Rookie DJ Moore from the Panthers we talked about a little bit. And then I had mentioned before Martavis Bryant now with the Raiders. Who are you going to keep? Who are you going to cut? And who are you going to trade?
It's funny, when he first sent this to me, I was going to I live in Pittsburgh, so I was going to kind of make a joke about trading Juju. But in reality, I'm going to trade Juju. He's not going to be his team's number one receiver. Well, as long as Antonio Brown's there another few years as a starter. And you got to play Dynasty in 3-year spots. Like, you can't look that far in the future when you have a talent like Antonio Brown there. I'm going to keep DJ Moore because he has the best opportunity to be the team's number one receiver. He has the best opportunity to be a star in the league and be a target monster. Then I'm going to cut Martavis Bryant because he's Martavis Bryant. He's limited. He's behind Amari Cooper. He's in this new Gruden offense, which I don't know what the hell they're doing in Oakland.
Yeah, me either.
And this is the easiest one you gave me, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. Looking at it, I think when I was kind of writing this was like 1:00 in the morning. I think the other night I was writing this, and then these are the 3 guys that were kind of closely ranked. When I was going through my rankings, I was like, all right, let me put these 3 guys in here. But now that I look at it, I think you're right. I think I'm going exactly the same way you are. Bryant's definitely the cut. Moore's definitely the keep. And Juju, with his decent rookie season and the offense he plays in, probably has a decent trade value. So I'm going to trade Juju. So I think I'm with you on that as well.
I've seen him so high on Dynasty rankings.
Juju?
I've seen him top 25 in a lot of places.
Wow, that's pretty high there, especially with Antonio Brown's not that old. I mean, he's not going away anytime soon.
No, and he's like, route runners are the guys who last forever in football.
Agreed. I mean, look how long Jerry Rice lasted. He was never the fastest guy or the most athletic guy, but he could run the hell out of some routes, and he played forever.
And
Fitzgerald, yeah, exactly. Good point. Good point. All right, so last one I got here. I've got Brandon Cooks, who's now with the LA Rams. Allen Robinson, who's now in Chicago, and Tyreek Hill. I was picking guys that had changed teams. When I got to Tyreek Hill, I know he didn't change teams, but he changed quarterbacks. So I wanted to put him in there. So of those 3 there, who you keeping and who you cutting and who you trading?
You're one player away from being my exact Dynasty team. I don't have Tyreek Hill, but I'm keeping Allen Robinson. I think he has the best opportunity to be his team's number one receiver, be a target monster. I like him in Chicago. I like Mitch Trubisky, who we did like 4 days ago. I think he has an opportunity and a talent to be a damn good receiver. I think he's a top 12 fantasy player. I'm trading Tyreek Hill because most people believe he's great, even though he's a boomer bust guy. Very similar to Cooks, but more people have him ranked a lot higher because he's younger and there's a brand new shiny quarterback. And cutting Cooks because we don't know what the Rams are going to do. I think he's better than Sammy Watkins was there, but I don't think he has the trade value Hill has, and I don't know how he's going to produce compared to them.
Yeah, I think I'm with you in the exact same order. I'm going to keep Allen Robinson. I think he could be a monster. I think we saw him, a few years ago with a bad quarterback, Bortles, and he still had a monster season. I think 14 touchdowns and I think 1,400 yards that season. Just ridiculous numbers that he put up on a bad team. I think the Bears are better than that team. I think the Trubisky could be better than Bortles. I think Robinson has a good bounce back year after his injury last year, and he ends up being the number one receiver there. Tyreek Hill, I agree. I think he's sort of that. He's got that super hype right now because of some of the big plays he had last year. I just don't know if those big plays are sustainable over another season. I think he had some ridiculous season last year with a lot of big plays. Just can't produce that consistently over your career. So I think he takes a step back. But I'm gonna go ahead and trade him since his value's so high. And I'm cutting Cooks because you're right. I mean, they got a lot of weapons there. It could be one of those situations, kind of like the Patriots, where they're all pretty good, but none of them have really good fantasy value. I think that they got Robert Woods there. They got, of course, Todd Gurley there. They've got a lot of pieces there. So I think that Cooks is the one with the least amount of value and least amount of what I think he's going to do this season. I'm not really sure, so I'm going to cut Cooks.
Cooks is the other one I own, by the way. I own Robinson, Cooks, Diggs all on one squad. Nice.
I got Robinson on one of my teams. It's kind of frustrating. So I got Keenan Allen and Robinson on this team. So 2 years ago I had Keenan Allen. Basically, 3 years ago Keenan Allen got injured first game. Next year Keenan Allen got injured again. Then finally I get Keenan Allen back, and then Robinson pulls the same thing on me, and he goes and gets injured in his first game. So I just want to keep them healthy.
Robinson, man.
Yeah, I do
good
too.
Receiver.
I do too. I think I like the fact that he did move. I was kind of hoping he'd go somewhere else like Green Bay, but I think with the pieces that the Bears have, I think he could still be a pretty good receiver in Chicago. So I'm kind of happy that he got out of Jacksonville.
Yeah, I am too.
All right, man. Thanks again for coming on the podcast. That wraps everything up there. Yeah, I love having you on, man. Talk some Dynasty football. My draft is for my main Dynasty league is in June, so I'm going to have you on a few more times before then. So make sure I get some of these sleepers.
Always glad to be here.
Definitely, man. I love having you on, and I think you're working on another article coming out here pretty soon. You want to tell us about it a little bit? Give us a little bit of teaser.
Yeah, I'm doing a top 10 risers and fallers. I'm going to have 5 guys who I thought their draft position raised a lot, and then 5 who kind of dropped a little bit. We hit a few of them tonight, but I'm definitely going to dive a little bit deeper into that.
All right, sounds good. We'll be on the lookout for that. Thanks again, guys. Make sure you catch him. You can catch him on Twitter at FantasyFBConnect. That's fantasy with no A's. Of course, he's also the co-host of Fantasy Football 24/7 podcast. He's the founder of the Fantasy Football Connect Facebook group. Of course, writes for me at goingfor2.com and also writes for dominatefantasy.com. So you're pretty much kind of all over the place, man. You do a little bit of everything.
Got to keep busy.
Definitely, man. All right, man. I appreciate it. I'll be talking to you.
Sounds good.